fight became very personal when he called for gun control and red flag laws against disabled veterans. His words, not mine.
Wait, what?
Second Amendment to me is paramount, and I believe the Second Amendment is the reason why all the other amendments exist, period, bar none.
Why we're here. That's why we're still standing here. Because without it, this country wouldn't exist anymore. Probably wouldn't never existed to begin with. Biden just created a whole office in the White House, which is completely unconstitutional, the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Sounds great. It's not about gun violence prevention. It's about gun confiscation. And
Absolutely.
It's funded through the White House. I mean, no Congress was involved. And you're running against a guy, his name is Keith Self. Probably nobody's heard of him watching because he's kind of not really memorable. Why should you be in that seat rather than this guy named Self?
I'll tell you right now. First and foremost, the fight became very personal when he called for gun control and red flag laws against disabled veterans. His words, not mine.
Wait, what?
Absolutely. He called for gun control against disabled veterans. So on an interview in Newsmax, we had a mass shooting in the district, okay? And look, the thing about Republicans and Democrats in general, we have to have a brain and a heart. And there are times to push forth rhetoric, and there are times just to shut up and be of service, okay? When you have a mass shooting, right, or you have any kind of sensationalized incident where a lot of people are hurt, a lot of people are scared, you know what leadership is? Leadership is getting on any news platform and saying the following and doing the following. Hey, now is not the time to politicize any of this nonsense. We have created a hotline for any victim. We've worked with local and state and federal enforcement, law enforcement agencies for any kind of support that's needed, mental health, healthcare. My office and staff is going to be here 24/7. Let's not politicize this right now. Like, absolutely not.
Exactly.
And you know what? Whatever slings and arrows come, so be it, because that's it. That's truly genuine. Like,
yeah, and that's the job of the congressman. That's it.
The job. The only fundamental job of a politician, I'll tell you right now, is to peddle hope, right? It's to peddle a better future. So when this guy got on TV and this guy basically said, well, we heard that he was in the military and, mentally he wasn't so well. What are your thoughts? When Self got on TV and said, and his words, I've memorized this, it's seared into my brain because I could not believe somebody said this. He said, I've spoken to a senior flag officer at the DOD who believes that the DOD is hamstrung by HIPAA because they would love to reveal the mental health status of disabled veterans to local law enforcement. There's a disconnect. And then the other guy says, oh yeah, there's really a disconnect. He's like, yeah, because it's time that local law enforcement knew, and then he laughed, the mental health status of these people moving into their neighborhoods. And I'll tell you why that statement was so repugnant.
Of veterans we're talking about. Wow.
Veterans. Listen, if he had said it about transgender kids, I would have been outraged.
No, I understand. I'm with you on that. But veterans, this is ridiculous. I mean, wow, they serve the country and then they can't have a gun. Okay.
So first and foremost, right now we're seeing, let me be crystal clear on this. The Second Amendment to me is paramount. And I believe the Second Amendment is the reason why all the other amendments exist, period, bar none.
Why we're here. That's why we're still standing here. Because without it, this country wouldn't exist anymore. Probably wouldn't never existed to begin with.
And to those who are quoting Biden's rambling when he said, well, to all those who think that guns are going to save you, you can't afford an F-15.
And for those brave right-wing Americans who say it's all about keeping America's independent and safe, if you want to fight against the country, you need an F-15. You need something a little more than a gun.
Well, if that was the case, why is January 6th likened to 9/11 in Pearl Harbor? Okay. And enough of the talking points. Let's be real. Okay. First and foremost, you're going after veterans and you're going to put them on a list like they're a sex offender. Okay. Because they had the courage to go seek mental health help. I'll share a personal story. My best friend in the military, I'm not going to say his name out of respect and privacy, but there's not a day that goes by when I don't think about him because he was my best friend. He was my brother. He was somebody who loved this country. He loved this. And then he fell into a state of depression. And the last person he called before he committed suicide was me. Okay.
Wow.
And I did not believe him. And when I said his name, to him, I was like, dude, if you're being serious about this, I'm going to call the police. I'm going to get some help. And you know what he said? Well, No, because I don't want to end up on some list because of some dip SH politician. Okay. And so I was like, okay, you're full of SH. Don't talk to me about this stuff. And I handled it in a very immature way because guess what? Mental health and men and us talking about those things were not really frowned upon, but it didn't have the societal necessity and need like it does now. I didn't have those skill sets. I wasn't mature enough. And for years, I blamed myself for his death. So imagine my jaw falling to the ground when I hear a sitting member of Congress being that person my best friend described. Now, let's analyze that statement. Number one, luckily he said it on a show which hardly anybody watched. But as of yesterday, the vice president of the United States said we need to ban all assault rifles, assault weapons, right?
She says it every chance she gets.
Every chance she gets. We have a perennial gubernatorial candidate or a perennial senator candidate for Senate in the form of Beto O'Rourke who wants to take guns away nonstop. We have a push by the left to take the Second Amendment away from us.
Well, Biden just created a whole office in the White House, which is completely unconstitutional. The Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Sounds great. It's not about gun violence prevention. It's about gun confiscation. And it's funded through the White House. I mean, no Congress was involved. This was some idea of some kookamamie guy from Orlando, Maxwell Frost, who's 20-something years old. He's some gun activist that used to run around with David Hogg and the girl who looks like Sinead O'Connor. I can't think of her name. But they just used to run around, the three of them, talking all about gun control. He says, I want a gun violence prevention office. He tried to get it through Congress. Congress said no. Biden just said, yeah, I'll do it. And he just does a gun violence prevention office. I mean, this is what we're dealing with.
Absolutely. So imagine the support that these far left Democrats would get, or I shouldn't even say Democrats, these far left people who have their own agenda have about removing guns. If they're like, well, we have a conservative congressman who's calling for red flag laws and gun control. I mean, look, I'm not going to go so far as to go after disabled vets, but I definitely. Now, here's the second thing. To what end is that policy going to be enforced? Is it the DOD, the same DOD that thought it was prudent to leave $84 billion in Afghanistan, the same DOD that left so many, extremely advanced grade optics night vision goggles, which have utterly gutted our, surprise first attack availability, the same DOD that left $1 trillion Bagram Air Force Base to be dissected, ripped apart by the Chinese, to be reverse engineered, which effectively made the Taliban among the largest arms dealer in the world, or the same DOD was run by General Milley and now his acolytes who believe that white rage is the most important thing, not the CCP. And they were going to call nations like the CCP to warn them of an impending first strike. The madness of that statement was odious.
We need people who want to fight. We need people who have a fight in them. And I mean, just this week, 100 of our people voted for Emmer. 44 of our people voted for McCarthy. These are our fighters? These aren't fighters. We need fighters. I think Burt's a fighter. So go check him out. He's the real deal. And I thank you so much for tuning in to the program today. I hope that you have a beautiful week.